This is part 2. Turn the camera up there. Part 2, May 21st. All right, the last group that we will do today is proceed and precede. Proceed and precede. To proceed, I believe you know very well, is a verb meaning to move ahead, move forward. Let's proceed with building a new house, suggested my husband. The usher asked us to proceed into the theater since the show was about to start. This happens every time I go to the symphony or to the Fox Theater for a musical. I enjoy being out in the lobby, having a snack and a drink and talking to people, and soon the usher comes around and he says, proceed into the theater, it's time for the show to start, and I'm always the last person to get in there and sit down, I think. Proceed. Precede is a verb meaning to come before. The marching band's performance preceded the start of the football game. My grandfather preceded my grandma in death. He was the one to die first. Okay? Pretty simple. There is a third one in this group that I want to mention, though, and that is proceedings. Okay? This is probably the tricky one. Hard to remember. Do I say precedings or proceedings? Okay? It's proceedings. Okay? Proceedings. And these are activities that usually involve a formal plan, the proceedings. The proceedings will begin at noon in the Fulton County Courthouse. Lots of times, governmental or legal types of activities are referred to as proceedings because they are formal. They usually have a plan with several parts, and you have to kind of stick with the plan, and you can't get out of order. So proceedings happen sometimes, or quite most of the time, in meetings or so forth that you might have in the courthouse. The proceedings, known as the changing of the guard at Kensington Palace in London, are a popular tourist attraction. Okay, so that's also a very formal proceeding that happens every day. I'm trying to think, does it happen more than once a day? I can't remember, but those of you who've traveled, some of you have gotten to see this. Okay, so kind of formal, and it goes the same every day. So proceedings, a noun. All right. So let's do a little practice with these. You received an email with this document. If you didn't print it out, you might want to pause and print this. And we're going to do this together. All right, we're going to use each one of the words in the word bank one time in this story. Read with me. Ileana's high school graduation was canceled due to the coronavirus outbreak. The disappointment blanked her greatly because many of her out-of-town relatives had planned to attend. What do you think fits in that first blank? I'll give you a moment to choose. If you chose affected, A, That is the correct one. She blank the school board's decision to cancel the ceremony. What do you think fits there? We know that she was disappointed, unhappy. She resented. The school board's decision to cancel the ceremony. Ileana, an aspiring athlete, was one of many students who would have received special recognition in the ceremony for her soccer accomplishments. She complained to her parents, "Why can't the school board blank students that graduation will be held at a later time? Why can't the school board blank students that graduation will be held at a later time?" If you chose assure, A-S-S-U-R-E, you are correct. Why can't they assure or remember, promise students that the graduation will be held at a later time? A new date could be chosen, maybe in late June. We could just blank invitations to all our guests. You got that one quickly, I'm sure. Resend with that hyphen. Ileana's dad and mom had worked hard to blank that their daughter's graduation festivities would be fun and memorable. Okay. Remember Dad working hard to make sure that his sons knew how to treat women? Okay. They worked hard to ensure. E-N-S-U-R-E. The entire family looked forward to the ceremony with its blank speeches and music. I think I told you that a while back about graduations. Traditional graduations have usually a number of speeches and some music that is usually some band type music, and also they may have a choir doing a choral piece or a solo, different types of music. Speeches and music can be what? Inspiring, right? They inspire us. They make us want to do something or to be better, and they make us feel full inside. Inspiring. They had hired a band to play for the post-ceremony party, as well as a catering service to provide the food. Fortunately, they had purchased event blank, so they were able to cancel and get a refund. Event insurance. Ileana and two of her friends decided to ask for a meeting with Mr. Phillips, the school board president. They would represent their fellow students by telling Mr. Phillips about the sad blank that missing graduation was having on everyone involved. What goes there? Effect. When the meeting took place, Mr. Phillips listened with interest to the students' thoughts. Together, they discussed some ways to hold a ceremony while continuing social distancing. Mr. Phillips blanked the students that he would meet with the school board to share the students' concerns and ideas. What do you think goes there? I think I hear you. Assured, right? Perhaps, he said, the school board will be in favor of blank with a new plan. And we're down to the last one, proceeding. In other words, will be in favor of moving forward with a new plan. Ileana and her friends left the meeting with renewed hope for a graduation ceremony after all. Good. Let's read it together for fluency, now that we have all of the words filled in. Read with me, and let's work on that fluency, the rise and fall of our voices, giving emphasis in the most important to the most important words as we go. Ileana's high school graduation was canceled due to the coronavirus outbreak. The disappointment affected her greatly because many of her out-of-town relatives had planned to attend. She resented the school board's decision to cancel the ceremony. Ileana, an inspiring athlete, was one of many students who would have received special recognition in the ceremony for her soccer accomplishments. She complained to her parents, "Why can't the school board assure students that graduation will be held at a later date? A new date could be chosen, maybe in late June. We could just rescind invitations to all of our guests." Ileana's dad and mom had worked hard to ensure their daughter's graduation festivities would be fun and memorable. The entire family looked forward to the ceremony with its inspiring speeches and music. They had hired a band to play for the post-ceremony party, as well as a catering service to provide food. Fortunately, they had purchased event insurance, so they were able to cancel and get a refund. Ileana and two of her friends decided to ask for a meeting with Mr. Phillips, the school board president. They would represent their fellow students by telling Mr. Phillips about the sad effect that missing graduation was having on everyone involved. When the meeting took place, Mr. Phillips listened with interest to the students' thoughts. Together, they discussed some ways to hold a ceremony while continuing social distancing. Mr. Phillips assured the students that he would meet with the school board to share the students' concerns and ideas. Perhaps, he said, the school board will be in favor of proceeding with a new plan. Ileana and her friends left the meeting with renewed hope for a graduation ceremony after all. All right. Thank you for sharing that activity with me. And I hope that those words feel friendly and more familiar to you now, even though they weren't brand new. I think practicing is always the way to make perfect, right? Okay, we are going to look at an article that I sent to you. It is a news article entitled, "For Native Americans, Coronavirus Looks Heartbreakingly Familiar." We're going to work on this in this session and the next. I do want you to read this article before you read it with me. So once again, if you haven't read it, pause, come back to the video later, go ahead and print this off. I chose a level. This is a wonderful website called News ELA, and the articles can be chosen from usually 3, sometimes as many as 5 reading levels. And it's kind of hard for me sometimes to decide exactly which one is right for the majority of you. But always, if I have something from News ELA and you find that your version is too easy or too difficult, let me know, because I can always send you one that's a little bit higher or a little bit lower, and you don't need to feel any embarrassment about that at all. It's just we all have different levels of reading confidence, don't we? This article is an interesting news piece because it looks at a segment of society in the United States that often is overlooked, which is extremely sad, because these were the indigenous people in the United States. These were the first Americans. We also refer to them as the Native Americans. And in times of crisis, oftentimes this group of people can become the least informed, maybe the least, have the least access to care, if it's health care that's needed, or emergency rebuilding, emergency supplies, depending on the situation. This group of people is often overlooked or pushed down the list of importance. I've always found that very tragic, really, because they were here first. The rest of us have actually benefited from who the Native Americans were in history, and what they contributed to the lives of those early settlers here in the United States. Today, there are Native Americans who certainly live among general society, okay? So you may find Native American students in your children's school. You may find Native American people working in a job, where you might be involved, or your spouse might be involved. But to a large extent, Native American culture still likes to be together, and there are certain parts of the country where they have chosen to have their communities, or they are living on the reservations, which were deeded by the United States government for the Native Americans to have places to live. And so these reservations are quite large expanses of land. Mostly today you would find these in the northern states, in northern and western states, such as Utah, Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota, Nebraska. And there are Native Americans living on reservations in Canada as well. A reservation is, again, it's a very, very large expanse of land, and it sort of is its own community of people. They live differently than a lot of us do, without probably as many conveniences, as many opportunities. They would have poorer health care, because there may only be one doctor for quite a few miles around. they farm the land, and oftentimes are self-sustaining to a great extent. The reservations have a number of problems, societal problems that are unfortunately a product of the way in which the people have lived and economically have struggled. I'm going to pause and come back and I'll tell you a little more about that.